Welcome back, everyone! Today we're jumping right into it. I have an illustration here. It is a fan art for Scum Villain's self-saving system. Say that 3 times fast, but I just call it Scummy. And it is of Luobingha and Shinjingzhou, otherwise known as Bingqiu, their ship name. So here we go. So this sketch I actually made back in April, but I did not finish it at the time because I just wasn't feeling it. But I recently started rereading Scummy, so I was really wanting to draw them again. And I found this sketch hidden away in my Procreate and decided to finish it up. This is kind of a comic-styled illustration. The second panel here I didn't really end up liking, so we'll be coming back to it shortly. The reason I originally came up with drawing this sketch was because I felt like a lot of my artwork of Bingqiu, Shinjingzhou is almost begrudgingly giving in to Luobingha's affections. And while there is some of that to their dynamic, because Shinjingzhou is very much in denial and very tsundere and says no homo way too often for a man married to another man, he does very much love his husband, and I really wanted to draw something of him showing that. So here I'm coming back to that panel that I mentioned before. I tried to make it work, but I still wasn't very happy with it. So a few minutes later, I came back into it and ended up reworking it a number of times until I came up with this cute chibi design, which I was much happier with. I felt like you could really tell that Bingha was just melting into Jizun's touch. In the drawing, they are in their bamboo house with a little visitor that they may not notice. The bamboo house, this is my first time drawing any of it, interior or exterior. So I did Google some bamboo houses, and it's kind of a combination of how I imagined it when I read the books, as well as what I learned from just looking at a few on Google. This is about where I stopped the sketch back in April, and this is about where I came back in and started on the line art once I cleaned up the sketch a little bit. Like I said, I'm currently rereading the novels. Where I am is in the second half of the second volume. The second volume has been really hard for me to read this time around. The first time I read it, I really flew through it. I was really enjoying it. But it's so hard to read the second time around because I just know every time that Shinjingzhou says something that just ruins Luobingha's day, and Luobingha is trying so hard to be what he thinks his Shizun wants, and it just keeps getting thrown into the garbage, and everything that happens gets thrown into his face, and Shinjingzhou just drives me insane this whole volume. So I'm just fighting my way through it. I think I have another 150, maybe 200 pages left of this volume, and I can get on to volume 3, which is simultaneously my favorite and least favorite volume, because the first half is so cute, it's so fluffy, I love it so much, and then the second half is absolute rip my heart out and tear it to shreds. But I'm looking forward to that. In regards to the drawing, you'll have seen that I mixed around with a few things to put in the foreground or something to take up all this space that I had in the interior of the house, and I ended up just putting down this carpet, and I do go a little crazy with that later. By which I mean there's a couple of things throughout the illustration that I thought were a little too plain, so I added some more designs to them, and honestly they're not completely insane, but might be more than I really expected to get into when I first started this drawing. I mean, for sure, it's more than I expected to get into in April. And I think part of the reason I ended up dropping it, that I wasn't feeling it, was because there was so much space. And I just felt like there was too much that still needed to be done. And I didn't know how to start those things. And this is where we get a little close-up of our visitor. If you've read the novels, you will likely recognize Lu Mingyan. She is canonically the prettiest girl in the series, and she's so pretty she has to keep a veil over her face so she doesn't distract everyone. But her real secret is that she is a fujoshi. She writes fan fiction about Bingqiu, much to Bingqiu's displeasure. And she's here taking some notes. This is the other piece that I just went a little crazier for than I definitely intended with the original sketch, was adding some designs to Luo Binghe's outfit. I wanted to both reference his lotus. He is referred to as White Lotus and Black Lotus Luo Binghe throughout the series. And I also wanted to kind of reference his design from the Dongua, which I haven't actually watched. But he has like these flames on his outfit, and I wanted the leaves coming off the lotus to kind of imitate the shape of the flames. And this is about where I started working on the backgrounds. I really like this pink halo effect that I gave Binghe in the second panel. Again, this kind of ended up my favorite part of this whole illustration. It's just so cute. And then the rug. I started designing this rug and just let it take over the entire canvas. I based the design off these Chinese tapestries and the design of Sengchong Peak from the Dongua. Again, I haven't watched a Dongua, but it gives lots of good visuals. You might see a little note right here about the blushies. I wrote this down when I first started the colors. Don't forget the blushies, because I didn't want to forget to give Binghe his red cheeks and his blushing ears, because I just wanted to make him look as sweet as possible. But then I forgot to give Bingqiu his blushies. I did end up giving them to him at the end, though they aren't as red as Luo Binghe's. This is when I started on the shading. I did kind of this rim light shading on the first panel, then moved on to the rest of the panels. The chibi panel has a more generic lighting, and then the last panel, of course, the lighting is coming from that open window with our little peeping Tom in it. I do really like how the rim lighting turned out on the first panel. Just makes Bingqiu look very graceful. I do often recolor the shading per layer, but on this one, I ended up not doing that because I didn't feel like the colors were super cohesive. So I decided to just leave the shading all one flat tone so that could kind of tie all the colors together. This happens very quickly, so it's hard to see. But I did think the rug was still looking very flat, so I decided to add a texture to it, and I just put on this free tapestry texture on top of it to just give it a little more life. Scum Villain is MXTX's first work, and I think it gets overlooked a lot. It's, at least with the Chinese audience, definitely the least popular. It gets so much less merch and collabs than both MDZS and TGCF, and it's kind of a shame, but it's a really fun read. Bingqiu's a really unreliable narrator, and he's really funny. It is an isekai of sorts, so since he's from the modern world, put in this ancient Chinese world, there's a lot of things that he thinks or says that are really out of place, and it makes it really funny. I will say, it probably has the weakest ending of all of MXTX's works, but I think that's honestly why it's so popular with the fandom, especially the fandom on Tumblr. There's just a lot that's left open for interpretation, and I think the people who read it and really enjoy it just love how much creative freedom that it can give them within a series that they already enjoy so much. So after we got a close-up and some finishing touches on our little peeping Tong Liu Mingyan, we went on to the highlights on their hair as well on their faces, and we were just about done. And here they are, all finished. I'm really happy I got to finally finish this illustration and happy I could share it with all of you. If you enjoyed watching, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you again next week. Thank you. Bye.